Away we go.
Episode 22, part 2, and we are going to do a attempted deep dive of Samantha Fulnecky, the Oklahoma student who wrote a very interesting, shall we say, essay in response to an article about gender norms and gender typicality as relates to bullying against people who try and conform or not conform to said norms.
So let me just break this all down. So at the University of Oklahoma, this just happened recently. This student, Fulnecky, what's her first name again? Samantha Fulnecky, right, enrolls in this course, right? So the course is called Lifespan Development. It's a 2000 level course, right? Now, it just so happens that this student instructor there, I think she's a grad student or a PhD student, whatever the thing is, there's a professor that oversees the whole thing, but this is the person who is actually doing the instructing. So she's transgender, right? So anyways, this student who, enrolls in this course, 2000 level course, it sort of makes sense that she'd be in this class. She is a psychology major. It is a 2000 level course. A lot of times people will take these lower level courses while they're still getting their undergrad, like their requirements, their core classes situated. So more often than not, this would be more of a sophomore level course, like a 200 level is more like a sophomore, 300-400 levels or more, junior, senior. Why she's taking this course in her third year, and why this specific course about lifespan development, it's not completely off because it is a psychology course and it is a 200 level, so you may have juniors in there. And even some seniors possibly, if they're just trying to wrap some things up and it looks like a cool course to them. But that's going to play a part, coming up when I start getting into this. So anyway, she takes this course, right? And they get this assignment. And like as Al mentioned, the assignment was to do a critique on this. So students were to respond to a scholarly article regarding gender typicality and the mental health of adolescents, right? So the essay, what they were supposed to do was, so I had to see, what was the criteria? Okay, rubric breakdown. So clear tie. So it was out of 25 points. So she does this response, right? So let me just give you the criteria for the paper. She's supposed to read this peer-reviewed paper, right? So this paper is called it's called Relations Among Gender Typicality, Peer Relations, and Mental Health During Early Adolescence, right? It examines typicality associated with popularity, whether being low in gender typicality is associated with rejection and teasing. So I'm not going to read the whole abstract here, but essentially what it's boiling down to is a paper that's looking at how closely you align with traditional gender roles in our society at this time period, right? In the United States. And, even that could probably vary from location to location, but it's pretty typical right across the board. So that's what the paper is analyzing here. And if you veer away, as Al said, from any of these gender typical norms, is that going to subject you to some ridicule, right? So now we're talking about gender specifically, which if you understand what gender means as opposed to sex, you understand that those are two separate things, because what typically might be associated to a female in our society may have been associated with a male in another society, right, or another time, even in this society. For example, go ahead and look in the 1700s at our forefathers and what they were wearing. High heels, wigs, and dress. Like, they look like women. Like, they look like drag. Yeah. Like, and being feminine in certain, what we call today feminine wasn't really necessarily considered feminine. Even in our society just a couple hundred years ago or 100 years ago. And like, this is so fluid. And throughout history in different locations and different areas, this gender normality associated to sex, male, female, it's all over the place, right? So you really can't, but this is just looking at what the norms are, probably specifying certain norms. And if you're veering away from these, how you can be ridiculed and treated differently and exposed to some abuse, right?
Right.
So this is not even, let's break this apart here. I know these last two are going really deep in this, but I think it's important in a lot of cases. Sex is a whole different thing.
And this article, from what we can tell, doesn't go into that.
Doesn't engage in
that's
what
not the topic.
Sex is. And so sex is also can be a spectrum. And it's more than just the XXXY chromosome thing. I mean, there's 20.
But it's not an issue that it investigates.
Right, even people don't understand because they think it's so binary. When in actuality, it's not even remotely close to binary. And in a lot of cases, sometimes it is pretty freaking solid. But it can go all over the place, and there's 20-something different chromosome variations to begin with that can happen. And then there's all kinds of things too, like hormonal things, where a person can have a certain amount of sex-specific areas that they align with, but then over here they're off the charts. They're more in the male category. So then what are you looking at? Not just genitalia. You're looking at all this whole spectrum. And then if an individual decides to identify something separate than what their organs dictate, it might be because of all these other factors involved. And I don't want to get into all that because I don't even know all that without reading and looking it up. I've read it before. I just can't spit it out to you. But there's such a spectrum involved here, and there's so many details involved here. And it's not just about testosterone and stuff like that, because even during, these things where they're like, oh, we'll test these girls for testosterone. These girls are popping positive for being a man, and they're not even men. So you can't do shit like that and then dictate who's a male and who's a female without literally dropping. Right. And then saying, well, that's the only factor.
I pulled up Samantha's essay, and what's...
But hold on, let me just wrap this up, and then we'll get into the essay. So, so we were talking about how, there's a difference between sex and gender, right? So anyways, let's just go back to the Samantha character. So she's this is Oklahoma, mind you, okay? So they're the worst in the country in education. I think they are the worst, like 50th.
49 or 50. They're way up there.
Right. So, and this is a heavily indoctrinated, Christian nationalist environment. And mind you, and I'll just bring this up now too, her mother just so happens to be a lawyer.
Not just any lawyer.
Not just any lawyer, right? So her mother just happens to be this prominent lawyer who defended January 6th defendants. And I know I'm not finding it here, but there's other things that she also has.
But that alone is kind of a big
tight relations to this, Christian nationalism, this MAGA movement, right? So she did things for the anti-mask stuff and during COVID, so she's very, very involved in politics and defending this MAGA movement, right, from their atrocities. And she's, of course, defending her daughter here, because let's just get into what happened. So she writes this paper as a critique, right? So, like I said, there was so I just brought up the article. So there was 10 points, 25 total. 10 were supposed to be awarded to clear connection to the signed article, right? And then 10 points were for thoughtful reaction to the article rather than just a summary. And then writing quality was 5 points, right? So she receives a 0, right? Because, and I will get into this paper was so poorly written that it didn't even deserve 2 points for putting her name on it. Which I probably would have given.
Yeah, I would have. I might have given her 3 or 4 based on
writing quality. On the writing quality part, I probably gave her 1 or 2 points just for putting something on paper. I probably would have given her a 0. On the clear tie and the thoughtful reaction, 0. That would have been a 0 because it did.
No, the first 2 sections. Right. Okay, can I? Right. I pulled up her essay, and it's really short. It's like 6 paragraphs, 5-6 paragraphs. What strikes me pretty quickly, though, is that she is not responding to the article. She is responding to her idea of the article, but like if you read that, what we told you is the article, and then you read her paper, they're not. She's not talking about that article.
Right. So let you go ahead and summarize some of these points inside what she's saying here, and then you can see where why this is so.
Basically, she's approaching it as a straw man, where she's.
Well, let me just. I'm sorry to interrupt you so many times on you here, but I just want to make this stuff clear. So she gets a 0 and then wants to sue the place for religious discrimination, because her argument is basically that's God said so, or that's God's will. So, and of course her mother is the lawyer in defense, and they end up not firing, but putting the instructor on administrative leave, and this poor woman, for giving this poor grade, because it doesn't qualify for a grade. And these are the same people who cry about DEI. These are the same people who think that people that don't deserve to get somewhere are getting somewhere because it's like because you're a Christian. But anyway, she thinks this is religious persecution, when it's just clear as day that it's just because your papers suck and you can't use God as a fucking reference.
So but even if let's give her a little bit of credit. Yeah. If she wanted to use God as an argument, then she would have actually. But like Steve said, she would have pulled up a scripture. But she could have twisted what she did very, very, very easily and done so and said, well, from a Christian perspective, the gender role should look like this instead of this, and instead she just said male, female,
right.
and not only that,
where the Bible even talk about
right, and then on top of that, like halfway down in her thing, she said there are only two genders, and I don't want to raise my kids believing that they can be all of these different genders that don't exist.
But she's talking about sex.
But that's the point. Is she's bringing up things that weren't even in the original article. The article is about gender norms and stereotypes,
which are
not
sex.
It has nothing to do with sex, and yet that's what her whole premise is about. Is sex, and then the rest of it is this whole. Well, God made you to be this way, and God made you.
So this is the point.
Okay,
two things are very problematic with this. If she wrote a paper this poorly and this poorly constructed and this poorly worded, and she's a junior at a university, my God, what are they like? How I can't understand how she could pass high school with a paper written this poorly, right? Or she did this on purpose. So it's horrible in both directions. It's horrible in the aspect that somebody at that level at university level, at junior level, who's pre-med, mind you, could write such a bad paper, or that she would purposely write a paper this bad just to garner a 0. Either way, it's fucking pathetic. What do I believe? A little of both, probably. She probably is that fucking bad.
This is the part that completely blew me away. Here it is. She says, it is important to use the freedom of speech that we have been given in this country, and I personally believe that eliminating gender in our society would be detrimental. That is not what anybody is proposing.
Eliminating gender?
Yeah, those are her words. Eliminating gender. Nobody is proposing that. It is a complete straw man because nobody is talking about that. What we are saying is that certain gender norms should not necessarily be given preference over others, and even that isn't necessarily what we're saying. But she is. I can only conclude that she is deliberately misreading
Here it is. She is trying to give herself some validity by saying, I'm not against gender. I'm just saying there's two.
Except that nobody's arguing
that means sex.
Yeah.
That's not gender. Once again, she's confusing gender with sex. And they're two separate things. And the idea that you couldn't even just look at a book to understand that, and look at a picture of a guy with a wig in the 1700s who's sitting in Congress here in America, that gender norms fluctuate.
But she, even within the small framework of what she appears to be saying, she can't bother to cite one single freaking example of her thinking. She can't bother to say, oh, well, this gender norm is appropriate or this one is inappropriate. All she can say is female good, male good, but she doesn't define what that means even within the context of her own thinking.
But read the parts about, let me pull this up, where she's just talking about because God.
Yeah, and she brings up Genesis, and she's like, in Genesis, God says that it's not good for man to be alone. He created his helper, which is woman. And
what are the gender norms for man and woman?
She doesn't define that. The only thing that she can kind of get at is, people should be married. I guess that's what she means. And women should be somewhat subservient to men. I'm assuming that's what she means. She doesn't even come out and say that directly, though. So everything that she appears to be saying, we have to infer because she can't even be bothered to write clearly enough so that we know what it is that she's saying. That's why we say that the writing is so bad. It's not just that we disagree with her. Oh, yeah, we do. But she could get at least 5 or 10 points on the damn paper if she could actually spell out her ideas.
Right.
You know, that's oh.
Yeah. Do you see anything?
Well, and like she says, what is it here? I think men and women are pressured to be more masculine or feminine. I strongly disagree with the idea.
What is feminine? What's masculine?
But she hasn't defined what masculine or feminine is. So for her to say that she disagrees with it doesn't even mean anything. It's just so frustrating. I mean, we know that she's heavily indoctrinated in about as far right Christian thinking as you can get. But as far as her actual opinion beyond that, or thought process or anything, it's not there. She and not only that, but I mean, I'm trying to think back to the standard format of what an essay it should look like, and she hasn't done that at all. You know, essay is supposed to be you lay out your ideas, blah blah blah, and then you list them sequentially in paragraphs, and then you have a closing remarks. And her closing remarks are, overall, this article was encourages me to raise my children in a God-fearing home. What the fuck?
Did you read about demonic?
Yeah. She says that all of this other stuff is just demonic. Like, okay.
So what do you mean that today's current? I'm trying to think what she's trying to say, but like today's current gender norms, if not abided by, or that she thinks that she hasn't defined, you're demonic. So if I'm a man dressing like what today would be considered a woman, I'm demonic.
Maybe. But she hasn't even defined that.
This is once again in the gender realm, but not even about trying to be a different sex. And once again, I think she's purposely confusing, because you have to be purposely at this point. Like, you're a goddamn psychology student at junior level and you don't know the difference between sex and gender? How can you? She deserved a fucking 0. Like, and I think that's like part of it is like, she's got to be a plant. Like,
right.
Her mom said, "Get in here and we'll give you this fucked up paper."
Well, and again, I mean, even if she had maintained the exact same ideas and just fleshed them out a little bit, that would have been a few points. But like, I don't know exactly what she's even saying.
Maybe her mom is smart, right? Smart enough to get a fucking pass the bar exam. Smart in that regard.
Yeah.
Smart enough to know how to write a paper.
Right.
Those are daughters of little Tim. It's, you know what, honey? Just write whatever you want. I'll back you up. Take this class, write whatever. If she gives you some shit, write this fucked up paper, and I'll just back you up. It's so pathetic. It's so bad. I can't find her fucking paper.
Here, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, this thing is giving me all kinds of fucking runarounds here.
There.
Where did I?
Sorry, I sent it to your phone instead of your. Yeah.
Don't just. I'll find it. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know what else to say about this without seeing her paper in front of me. I just remember reading it and thinking to myself that this girl is so. Like,
okay, I sent it to you via your messenger. So.
Which messenger?
Facebook. Sorry, I guess I can.
So, anyways, yeah, I mean, I think that the point being here is that. I should have closed all those tabs. I think I got everything I needed from this. But I think that, it's pretty clear what's going on here. Once again, this is this Christian nationalism, and they are always trying to say that they're being the ones being persecuted somehow, right? And was this a link?
Yeah, I don't know if it was no, I think it's a file itself. But it's wanting to save it or something, I guess.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I don't know.
Okay,
go ahead and talk about something.
Yeah. So, sorry, I didn't mean to leave you all hanging there. The point I was about to make though is, if you choose to comment on this one, her essay is all of about 6 paragraphs. Please peruse it before you comment. Just so we're all on the same page. I don't think anybody's probably going to come up with.
So basically, she says, okay, so like, my fucking.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of you probably had a general sense of the story before you listened to this video, but it just gets worse when you dig down, because it's like, okay, you knew it was going to be bad, but really, it's this bad? Yes, it is.
It is that bad. And basically, her whole argument is because of God. I wish I could have this in front of me so I could really break it down.
Well, it's
because my freaking PDF thing is.
Again, it's not just that she's got terrible arguments. It's that she can't even be bothered to explain her own arguments. Like, it's that bad. Okay, Steve's got the article up.
Yeah, so God made male and female and made us differently.
But what does that mean?
On purpose.
Let's assume that's true.
What way
so
did
what?
God make us different?
Yeah.
Like, didn't even specify what. God is intentional. Gender roles should not be considered stereotypes. What does that mean? Like, women naturally want to do womanly things. What are womanly things? And what makes them natural? But we all know that's conditional, like I said, based on time and culture and society. These are all constructs. Gender is a construct entirely. There's nothing inherent about any of it. Maybe nurturing could be inherent. I don't know,
But she didn't even use the term nurturing,
right,
which would have been something.
What she could have said was this kind of thing that seems to be more prevalent in women tends to lead towards a more nurturing attitude. Something to even back up that argument, even if it's not true, that it's been debunked somehow. But, like, at least present something. Like,
I mean, her entire thing is a really badly done ad hoc fallacy. Ad hoc is where you basically just put something out there with no justification, no rationale. Just, I believe this. Well, I believe this without...
She wants to conform to the same mundane opinion. But this is the thing. It's not an opinion when they're doing peer-reviewed articles that are subject to scrutiny from other professionals. This is an opinion that she's giving. And now she says, it is important to use freedom of speech. See, this is where I think this is
a plant. Yeah.
Why? This is not about your speech. This is about you having an opinion that you want me to listen to that doesn't apply to science. Once again, these people getting out of their lane. And I personally believe that eliminating gender would be detrimental, but what does that even mean?
That's the most hilarious part of that whole damn essay.
Because it pulls from God's plan. So she thinks that the plan, I guess, is gender roles to her is, that trad wife thing where the woman sits in the goddamn kitchen and the man goes, but this, like, even in the Bible.
But she can't even say that much.
I don't even know where in the Bible
it's not in the Bible. That's the hilarious part. But
many people assume the word helper. Oh, because it says helper. I get it. Is that ezer genegdo, and it translates it helper equal to. So she's saying that, look, woman is below man. I know that's in the Bible. Like, the hierarchy in the Bible specifically says God, man, woman, animal, like that. So,
but she tries to throw in this, what is it, Hebrew or Greek or something to make herself look like an expert or something.
She says it's helper, but the helper of equal status.
But that's not really what she means, and
but it's still the hierarchy because you're the helper, but not the decision maker or anything else. And this is God's place. So the woman is the helper. So this is her argument. Okay, now that I'm getting into this again and remembering this, her argument being that the woman, that's their gender role, is to be the helper. And that there's no other society that ever existed where that role wasn't just like, what about these like matriarchal societies where the women were the hunters? Like, there's all kinds of fucking things that don't, like, I don't think men and women are pressured to be more masculine or feminine. Okay, so then she's saying something about that relates to something masculine, feminine, that we can kind of get an idea where she might be talking about. I strongly disagree with the idea from the article that encourage acceptance of diverse gender expressions could improve confidence. Well, I didn't read the article, but according to the article summary, it's saying just the opposite. That if you're exhibiting these deviance from the gender norms, like is associated, kind of a little bit to what she's going for here, that you're going to be ridiculed and treated poorly. So and that people should probably be more accepting so that these people don't get bullied. However, pushing the lie that everyone has their own truth and everyone can do whatever they want and be whoever they want is not biblical whatsoever. So,
well, which is problematic just in the mere sense that anything has to be biblical. I mean, she's not going to a Bible college. The last time I checked, I thought it was a state college or
pushing the lie. Why is that everyone? So anything that's not in the Bible is a lie. So it's pushing a lie that everyone has their own truth.
Well, last time I checked, people interpreted the Bible to say contradictory things left and right. So.
The Bible says that our lives are not our own, but that our lives and bodies belong to the Lord. So basically, she's saying that I live my life based on this truth and feeling that there would be less gender issues and insecurities if they would be raised knowing they do not belong to themselves and belong to the Lord. So basically, she's saying that, look, she is obviously part of the problem here that the paper was addressing. That there's a good portion of society that are going to look at these individuals who don't fit into this very, very narrow definition that doesn't apply throughout history, throughout cultures and societies, even in our own cultures and societies, you know. And there's a spectrum and a deviation of these spectrums that have existed throughout history. There, you know, if I remember correctly, if you look at the ancient Greeks, they had words for people that were kind of androgynous and in between. The Greeks had it. The Roman, they had it in Rome. They had these ideas in ancient India. I believe that in Egypt as well. This is a well-known, even I think in the Bible it addresses individuals like that, if I remember correctly. So this is not new. This is something that exists. You can't just say, and to say that if an individual, right, is exhibiting these things and want to be their own person, that they're demonic, is proof in the pudding about probably what that paper is probably saying. Yep. And I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here because I didn't read the paper, but I read the summary and the premise. So, and I know what happens because I've, been in school and I see how cruel people can be. And then she says, makes me encouraged to arrange my show and they have a Heavenly Father. Well, that's up to you. Once again, you're saying people's opinion about things, right? No, this is a paper, peer-reviewed article.
For a psychology class, not a current events class or something.
Right, this is your opinion on a book of fairy tales written 2,500 years ago. Like, you got a 0 for good reason. None of this makes sense. None of it addressed the thing. And I probably gave you 2 points for putting something on paper. And that's it. My prayer for the world, for America, is that youth would not believe in lies being spread from Satan that make us believe they are better off another gender, which once again...
I'm 99% sure wasn't even in that paper.
Not only that, another gender. What does that mean?
Right.
I think she means another sex than what you were born.
Right, correct.
She's once again confusing sex and gender. And that sex has to be a gender norm when they're two separate things. Then God made them. So here's the thing. If we know throughout history these people existed, proof everywhere of this. They exist today. Proof everywhere of this, especially in psychology, right? And even if you want to get into the biology of sex, right? And we're talking about something different. But in gender, right? Everywhere we can see gender deviations throughout history. So if that's true, and God made that, and God is perfect in all his creations, well, then you're going against God, lady.
Yep.
Because you're the one who's not listening to God. Because God made these people, these people are creations from the universe, God, let's call it. And you're saying that that's a mistake. And that somehow they have applied their own will against God's will to be this individual that they are. Like the people who think that being, homosexual is a choice or bisexual or whatever is a choice. And all I got to say to people like that is, you must be bisexual. Because for most people, it's not a choice. You're either just heterosexual or you're not.
And considering the amount of discrimination people like that get, why would anybody choose it? It doesn't make any sense. It's like,
it's so stupid. And that's the funny thing is all these people, all these Republicans, right? A good number of them are closeted. That's why when they come to different places, it's this repression. So they go to God and they go to things because of what that paper is talking about. And they've got it all repressed. And this girl is in the worst part, like not the worst part, but the most ridiculous part of all this is she is just confirming what happens because of this thing. And once again, I always want to bring this back to the DEI thing about them always being the problem that they say they're solving. You are the problem. This paper deserves a 0. How anybody like you could get to this, like this individual who wrote this paper could get to this point writing a paper like that, and they're not in fucking like middle school, because that sounds like fucking middle school or elementary school. Right?
If my son who's 10 wrote something like that, I'd give him a hard time. Again, not because of the ideas, but because you haven't explained anything.
Right. This is just hogwash. It's just literally like a child just scribbled some shit on here. So yeah, I wanted to bring up this thing. I think it's important that we did because I think it just exemplifies the whole sickness of our fucking system and society. That could equate, somebody had this awesome thing where it said, like, had a math fucking thing, right? And every answer was God, Lord, Christ. Like 5 plus 5, Christ. 8 plus 8. Jesus, and then the paper gets 0, It's like,
essentially.
This is what that is. This is fucking hogwash. Do you want to say
no, I don't even have a wrap up.
Look, we've had 2 things here that have gone really long. We might just wrap it up with one more. These are really fucking long episodes. Maybe we'll do one more and that's it. But yeah, so basically, once again, this is just a prime example of these assholes being every fucking problem, being the problem they say they want to solve in the world. And this has no business in higher education.